If I had to start over from scratch today as a real estate investor, I'm going to show you exactly how I would do it. Let's get started. If you haven't met me, my name is Ryan Dossey. I'm a real estate investor. I've pretty much done everything but ground up new development, apartments, buy and hold, fix and flip, wholesaling, wholetailing. Did like some creative finance type stuff. I own Ballpoint Marketing. I own Call Porter. I own a mastermind group for real estate investors. Our guys in that have reported back to us like 78 million bucks in profit. I say all that like, why should you care? My staff has taken 250,000 plus calls just for real estate investors. Like, I'm in this space, I know it, and I work directly with a lot of people that are actually doing the dang thing, not just like posting and talking about it. So if I had to start over from scratch today, the number one thing that I would focus on is revenue generating activities. That is the most important thing when you're first starting this business, is pulling back in capital. So what are some examples of revenue generating activities? Well, first is going to be talking to sellers. So I'm going to be doing things to get my phone to ring or making calls to get in front of sellers. That could be things like doing direct mail, making offers on stuff that's on the MLS, calling for sale by owner, following up with people I've already talked to, networking locally, but really doing things that create momentum. It's really easy to sit at your desk and be like, okay, I'm going to come up with the perfect copy for a mail piece and waste a week on that. You'd be better off if you just spent a week smiling and dialing or door knocking or doing something that should result in you getting contracts back. For me, my number one source of deals has always been direct mail. Even before I owned Ballpoint Marketing, I was ordering yellow letters, and that was how I got my first deal. Put $3,000 I couldn't afford to lose on a credit card. Had a seller that called in. We wholesaled that place, made right at like $12,500. After paying back expenses, had like $10,000 left. So if I was starting completely from scratch today, I would pull some niche lists via PropStream. I would hit them with direct mail. And because I'm just starting out, let's say I don't have a ton of capital, I'm probably not going to use Call Porter or a CRM or a website just yet. When I started out early on, I just used a Google Sheet, seller name, address, notes, last time I contacted them. Just every single day, go in there, who have I not touched for the longest amount of time, and I'm going to reach out to that seller. Hey, I haven't followed up with this person in 3 weeks. Let's touch back base. One thing that I would recommend in that, so a lot of newbie real estate investors make the mistake of doing a lot of these things. They do a direct mail campaign. They're working seller leads. And when it doesn't work, if they're using something like Resimpli, they turn it off. Like, well, I'm done wasting $150 a month, right? That's a couple nights at the bar. So they kill it off. My recommendation and what I did early on, I literally went in to AT&T and I got a second cell phone, literally like a drug dealer. Like, I got my work phone and I've got my personal phone. And that forced me, like, at minimum, I even put a new phone on it. Like, I'm under contract on this sucker, can't get rid of it for 2 years. If you saw the video I posted a couple weeks back, we're going to make $82,000. Wild. My last year as a W-2 employee, I made $23,000. I'm not at the point that I'm like, oh, what's $82,000 to a guy? Like, that is an absurd amount of money for one deal. But it took that seller over a year to call us after they got their mail piece. For a lot of you guys, all your crap would be shut off. You would have lost that opportunity or not gotten it. So, make sure you don't necessarily have to go set up a second cell phone. I recommend it. When you get to the point then that like, okay, I don't want to take my own calls, you can literally just forward every call that comes into that phone number to somebody or something else like Call Porter, which kind of gets me to my next point. If I get to the point that I have enough inbound opportunities that I'm starting to miss calls, that's when I would look into hiring something like Call Porter. I tried cheaper alternatives before I built Call Porter, including like overseas VAs and competitors that I won't name. My recommendation, you get to the point that you start missing calls. That means you're going to start missing deals and opportunities. Whole reason I started Call Porter, had a call come in on a Friday night, didn't take it. Called the guy back on Monday because, it was the weekend and whatever. The guy said, hey, Ryan, somebody else had the initiative to take my call over the weekend. I already sold the place to them. And it was at a time that I really needed a deal. So that was what catalyzed that for me. Once I start to get some traction and I realize like, hey, I'm onto this, I'm figuring this out, that's when I would set up a CRM. I personally use and only recommend Resimpli. They've helped me and the folks I work with make more money than we can even track at this point. One thing that I really wouldn't do is focus on labor time intensive tasks. Now, hear me out, right? I'm going at this from the angle. I'm assuming you're bootstrapping it. Like you don't have venture capital where you can just afford to light money on fire. But I'm also assuming like you have somewhat of a marketing budget. It's going to cost you something to get deals in this business. Anybody who tells you otherwise is lying to you and trying to sell you something that's probably not really going to work. It's either going to cost you time or it's going to cost you money or a mix of both. And that's kind of a sliding scale. My typical cost to get an off-market deal is $3,000 to $5,000. I would rather do that in direct mail. It's been my most consistent source of deals where I'm then just waiting on the inbound calls versus like cold calling or driving for dollars or any of that sort of stuff. There's a lot of things you can do to kind of add gas to this business, like getting into county records and finding and pulling niche lists or driving for dollars. My recommendation, my heart to yours, is you save those things until you can afford to outsource them. The reason for that, there's only so many hours in the day. Early on in my investing career, my marriage really suffered because I was so focused on all of these time-consuming tasks and doing things like trying to create my own logos, trying to perfect X, Y, and Z. And honestly, a lot of it ended up being busy work, but I think I worked a lot more than I needed to figure this stuff out, which honestly is kind of the heart of why I'm here on YouTube. My goal is to be a resource for guys like me when I was just starting out. If I would have had like what exists to you today, I don't think it would have taken me 3-4 years to really get traction. I think I could have done it in like 6 to 12 months. So quick recap, focus on what's revenue generating. Don't do things that are super time or labor intensive that aren't likely to have a payoff very quick. Outsource what you can. Don't fuss or worry about things like a website or CRM until you start to get some traction, unless you just know you're going to be in this business forever. But a lot of guys dabble, set up all that stuff, and waste some time. And the fifth thing is you can add to this as you go. You don't have to start with like the full-fledged system of what I'm doing if you've never done a deal before. If you're watching this video and you're like, okay, cool, this talks about like marketing and what activities and actions to take, but like, how do I actually make the money? I'm going to link in the comment on this video to a full course I shot that I just literally gave away for free on how I made my first $371,000 that I'll just link to. There's no upsell, like literally the course is free. Go through that. That's how I did it. Copy, paste, profit. You're welcome. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe. Again, my name is Ryan Dossey. I'll talk to you guys next time.